I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Community Unit School District 300 Board of Education. Mr. Fiorentino, would you please take the roll?
Stevens.
Here.
Scarpino.
Present.
Miller. McNicholas.
Here.
Kopaz.
Here.
Garcia.
Present.
Fiorentino. Present.
Mrs. Miller sends her regards. She is not able to be here tonight. We have tonight with us students from Gary D. Wright Elementary School for assistance with the pledge.
Parents, just as a reminder, if you want to take pictures, please feel free to roam the room. Just don't block anybody else. Be polite if you want to come up here and get pictures or be down there. We just ask you don't block anybody else.
Also, parents, when they're done, they're going to file back above here. And if you want to come around and take pictures, you're welcome to do that as well. We've got a good-looking group here with us tonight.
Big group.
All right. Well, Superintendent Hyde and members of the board, it is our distinct pleasure to bring to you today these students who are here to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have some rather tall students, and you might be wondering, Gary D. Wright Elementary School. Well, we've really taken on the motto within our school that all kids are our kids. And one of the things that we've been extremely proud of, anytime that I talk with people, one of the things that I really, really am so proud of is that our school is also on the same campus as Hampshire High School. And with that, it brings us a very unique opportunity to be able to have not only our high schoolers come in and help teach the students who are here today. They are either learning about child development, foundations of education. So they come over and they help assist in our classrooms. So the students before you today have all been nominated by staff at either Gary D. Wright Elementary School or Hampshire High School for having established very strong, positive relationships with one another. So that's why they're here. Also with us here today, we have some members of the Gary D. Wright Elementary School staff, and we'll introduce them in just a moment. But first, I'd like to turn things over to Miss Emily Barber, who is the teacher of many of these high school students here today. And she'd like to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the program and the partnership that we have between our two schools.
Good evening, Superintendent Hyde and the board. In the Family and Consumer Science Department at Hampshire High School, we offer a variety of classes that work hands-on with the students at Gary D. Wright Elementary. The students in Child Development 2 and 3, and also our education pathway, have the opportunity to go over 1 to 2 times a week to work in the classrooms with the teachers and the students. The high school students work one-on-one with students in small groups. They also help create bulletin boards, and they're there to help the teachers with any tasks that they need, whether it be simple copying, filing, or even just working with a small group of students independently reading. One of the best things about our partnerships with Gary D. Wright Elementary is the dedicated teachers who open their doors each semester to allow for hands-on learning opportunity for our high school students. To hear, yay, our high school helpers are here today, is one of the best sounds I hear as I'm walking through the halls at Gary D. Wright Elementary.
And again, it has just been such a privilege to be able to see our high schoolers, not only in a teaching capacity, but also in a learning capacity, because I believe many of these young ladies who are here today are going to go on and continue to make an impact in the field of education. So we really appreciate that they've taken time out of their busy schedules to be here. Part of this today is also a learning opportunity for them because they are now building their portfolios and they're learning what a school board meeting is all about. So we're very excited. We also have here Mrs. Lupo, who's one of our kindergarten teachers who works with some high school helpers, as well as Mrs. Kathleen Graham, who also works with the high school helpers. They're both staff members at school. And now our students have been prepping for this evening. They're going to introduce themselves by saying their name. And they said, do we have to say our grade? And I encourage them to, just so that we don't mistake some of our students for high schoolers. So why don't we start in the back? Go ahead. And we were talking in one of the conference rooms before the meeting, and we were learning about that tomorrow is actually board member appreciation. And we've also talked about how at Gary D. Wright Elementary School, we have an adopted board member. Do you remember our adopted board member? Okay, that's right, Vice President Stevens, and we have something for him today. If you guys would like to.
Lucky you.
I could. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. So now, Wildcats, Withers, you want to stand? Place your hands on your heart for the pledge.
We got plenty of room without Ann here. I love it. Now they come up and say hello. We haven't gotten to see their faces. You have to be asking them first.
Hey there.
Nice bow, I like it.
Thank you.
Coming.
Nice tie.
The parents of the Hampshire students, please raise your hands. Hampshire High School students. Well, because I'm recruiting right now. We are always actively accepting resumes. So as these fine students complete their College of Education pursuits, please come back to District 300. Outstanding.
Can I just say something? As a Hampshire resident, it really makes me feel old when I see parents of students that are my kids' age in the audience, and how it comes full circle, that they stick in the community and love the district. So that's awesome.
And Mrs. Cope has also whispered to me that if her adopted school wanted to bring her something really nice like that, she would be okay with that. All right, item number 5. On the agenda, we have 2 changes. We will eliminate item 13. There is no need for a closed session. And we are delaying a vote on item 14.3, employee discipline case number 3, until the next board meeting. So with those changes, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Mr. Fiorentino?
Fiorentino, aye. Lopez.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Scarpino.
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
6-0.
Mr. Hyde, regarding student staff recognition?
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, we're just confirming something very quickly based on the board's modification to the agenda. Okay, it was
Did I do the
correct.
wrong one?
No, sir. The board voted correctly on issue number 3. I just wanted to confirm that. So this.
Right.
Always listen to the attorney.
That is correct. Yes, we're.
I wouldn't want it to get back to Mrs. Miller that I screwed up. Mr. Hyde.
This evening, thank you. Fellow board members, members of the community, parents, staff, thank you for bringing it this evening. It's my pleasure to transition us to our student and staff recognition portion this evening. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sheila Karate-Kagan, our K-12 Coordinator of Fine and Performing Arts. She'll join us at the podium and introduce this evening's ILMEA Regional Festival District 9 Middle School students.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde, and good evening, Mr. Hyde, members of the board and D300 community. It is my very distinct honor to bring forth several students from 3 of our middle schools who were selected to participate in the Illinois Music Education Association District 9 Festival Band, Orchestra, Choir, and Jazz Bands. I did want to note that 2 of our schools have concerts this evening, and we will recognize the students from Carpentersville Middle School and Algonquin Middle School at a later date. I would also like to thank District 9 ILMEA President, our very own Jake Stauffer, for being in attendance this evening to help recognize our students. And we will begin by introducing our students from Dundee Middle School, and I would like to welcome Mr. Matthew Bishop, one of our band teachers at Dundee Middle School, to do the honors.
All right, these are our students from Dundee Middle School. We're very proud of them. Starting from your right, I'll cross to the left. On French horn, 8th grader Janelle Williams. Baritone voice, Jesse Aronia. Alto voice, Chloe Romero. Baritone voice, Mitchell Ruffin. Soprano voice, Nikki Schmidling. Violin, Colin Blackman. Double bass, Summer Plaker. And double bass, Kaylin Wiebe. Can you please give them a round of applause?
It's okay. We didn't get to practice, so. All right. For members of our audience who are not familiar with ILMEA, these students had to go through a very difficult and lengthy audition process where they had to learn very difficult music for their age, and they spent a lot of their own time and dedicated their many extra practice hours to learning this very difficult music, and had to compete for these seats among students from many other schools all around District 9. Next up, I'd like to welcome from Hampshire Middle School, Mrs. Victoria Hicks. She is the band teacher, and she will be introducing our Hampshire Middle School students.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'd like to introduce two of the 4 kids from Hampshire Middle School who were able to be here tonight. Alexis Carty is an 8th grade bass clarinet player. She's also going to be joining us for Jazz Club after Thanksgiving, and is a club volleyball player. So we got a little sports and her music going, and that's near and dear to my heart because I lived that for many years. We also have Felisa Lascano, who is a 7th grade singer in choir, and she's also a trumpet player in band. So these girls work very hard, and outside of music, they have a lot of things going on too. So please, a round of applause for these 2 young ladies.
Congratulations, great job.
Had to lower the mic after Mr. Bishop and then raise it after Mrs. Hicks. Okay, and our last group this evening is Westfield Community School, and I would like to welcome both Kevin Dabeck, one of our band directors, and Jillian Peel, our choir teacher, to represent the students from and introduce the students from Westfield Community School.
All right, hello, my name is Kevin Dabeck. I have the pleasure of working with the majority of these students on a daily basis. They're the finest our school has to offer, and we are pleased to present them here for you today. First, we have Aaliyah Ogden, Christina McMahon for band, and then for orchestra, we have Andy Cabendal.
For choir, we have Jack Drake, Olivia Kuklo, Owen Morrison, Alex Quast, Madeline Rica, Haley Stillwood, and Torben Strobel. If we could give them a round of applause.
Congratulations, great job. Congratulations. Congratulations, great job. Good job. Nice attire. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Congratulations, sir. You might as well. I'm going to bring you right back. Congratulations. Thank you, man. Congratulations. Members of the board, members of the community, this is a double header for Mr. Dabeck because he is also being recognized this evening as our Blue Ribbon Society member. And when I read you this story, you'll understand. He was told to circle back around. The Blue Ribbon Society acknowledges individuals who demonstrate admirable qualities while striving to achieve District 300's central mission, to ensure that all students are college and career ready upon graduation. It's my pleasure to present tonight's Blue Ribbon Society Award to Kevin Dabeck, Westfield Community Schools Band Director. As our board members know, one of our 4 major goal areas in our district strategic plan is to develop the whole child. The work Mr. Dabeck is performing inside his classroom clearly indicates he is achieving this goal. Mr. Dabeck goes above and beyond to develop his students academically, musically, and socially. He has created a family environment within his classroom where he provides constant support and instills his students with a strong work ethic. He strives to teach his students independence and leadership through constant positive feedback. Last month, the District 300 Central Office received a message from a parent of a former Westfield and now current Jacobs student who, for the purposes of this, will remain anonymous. In her message, the parent stated that her son had Mr. Dabeck for his entire middle school career and that Mr. Dabeck was instrumental in inspiring him to pursue marching band at Jacobs. The parent continued, stating her son could previously be described as a shy student who wouldn't take risks with his learning or with music. But because of Mr. Dabeck's amazing impact, her son had participated in many experiences outside of marching band, which has added to the richness of his high school experience. Whenever a parent takes the time to write such a powerful letter about the impact a teacher has on a student, that teacher deserves to be recognized and celebrated. Mr. Dabeck has created tremendous growth opportunities for his students that have improved their overall school experience, which directly aligns to our central mission to ensure that all students are college career ready upon graduation. At this time, I'd like to re-invite Mr. Dobick to come forward and accept his Blue Ribbon Society recognition. And he's probably still, oh, there he is, okay. As he races to go back outside and celebrate with his students. Once again, congratulations. That concludes the staff and student recognition for this evening.
All right, we move on to, is there a video that we're going to see now? No. This, okay. With regard to good news, who is first?
I am.
Please.
Oh, I was waiting for the TV to be ready. All right. Last month, 2 United States legislators visited District 300 schools. On November 1st, United States Senator Karen McConaughey visited Dundee Highlands Elementary School, where she engaged students in an activity designed to demonstrate the power one person can have to change the law. To begin the activity, Senator McConaughey told the students the story of Chloe Sterling, a 12-year-old from Chicago who started a business selling cupcakes she baked in her family kitchen. The county health inspector shut down her business because Chloe didn't have proper permits and the cupcakes were not produced in a commercial-grade kitchen. Students role-played this scenario, taking on the personas of actual people involved in the situation, ranging from Chloe, her family members, the health department inspector, and even the governor. Students wore costumes, read from scripts, and learned how Chloe used her voice to have lawmakers pass a bill that allowed her to reopen her business. When the exercise finished, Senator McConaughey fielded questions from the students. On October 27th, United States Representative Peter Roskam visited Eastview Elementary School to deliver a presentation about how a bill becomes a law. During the presentation, Representative Roskam called on a 4th grade student and asked him to imagine a law he believes should be passed. The student responded he'd like to make it illegal for people to yell in a library. Representative Roskam proceeded to walk the audience through the steps required to turn the student's idea into a law. After the presentation, Representative Roskam spent time answering student questions. On behalf of District 300, I'd like to thank both Senator McConaughey and Representative Roskam for taking time out of their busy schedules to interact with our D300 students.
Staff and students from NIU's College of Education recently welcomed 5th grade students from Golfview Elementary to visit Schweitzer Woods. This visit was the second part of Project Slide, a 2-part series where Northern Illinois students led Golfview Elementary students in learning about biodiversity, recycling, local ecosystems, ecology, and invasive species. Each session offered hands-on experiments and learning opportunities in the field. This is the second year NIU and Golfview have worked together to bring this opportunity to students. They are currently working together to create a spring experience. District 300 would like to thank NIU for creating a strong partnership with Golfview Elementary and building positive relationships with our students.
District 300 invites you to attend the 5th Annual Henry's Thanksgiving Day Hustle 5K and Kids Dash at Marlowe Middle School in Lake in the Hills on Thanksgiving at 8 a.m. The race benefits the Muscular Dystrophy Association in honor of Henry Betts, the 5-year-old son of Liberty Elementary School teacher and Jacobs High School tennis coach John Betts. Last year, the 5K had over 350 walkers, runners, and kid dashers, and the event raised over $4,000, which went towards sending several children with muscle disease to MDA summer camp and supported MDA's mission of supporting families affected by muscle disease through research, treatment, and assistive equipment. For more information, please visit www.henryshustle.com. And my mom cannot say enough about how wonderful John Betts is, and it's all I've ever heard reflected across this community. So I hope to see all of you there, probably outpacing me, early Thanksgiving morning.
I think it's cool you're going.
On November 2nd, the DC Fights the Stigma group hosted a special event featuring author and speaker Jeff Yeldon, who spoke to the Dundee Crown community about mental health topics and how to fight the mental health stigma. The families and community members in attendance learned how to support students who may be dealing with mental illness. Before the event occurred, Jeff recorded a video for Dundee Crown High School students and community members that provided an overview of his message. Please join us as we view a brief excerpt from Jeff's video.
Carpentersville, Illinois, Dundee Crown High School. My friends, I'm Jeff Yalden. On Thursday, November 2nd, I have the incredible honor of being your speaker. My friends, we're going to have an awesome time. So I wanted to stop by and just introduce myself real quick and tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. Listen, I know many of you come into these assemblies and you think, this is going to stink, just another person to tell me, do this, don't do that, don't do this and do that. Hey, my friends, I've been doing this way too long to come to try to impress anybody. My time with you, my friends, I'm going to tell you, lives are going to change. And some of you might be thinking, you know, Jeff, man, it's a pretty bold statement for someone that doesn't know us. I'll take that challenge anytime. I'm a man that lives with mental illness, diagnosed with major depression, bipolar type 2, and post-traumatic stress. I'm not a victim, nor do I allow that to be an excuse in my life. I'm also not a rainbow unicorn type speaker, where I allow you to make excuses in your life. You see, I think life is what we make of it. I think life is what we bring to the table every single day. Simple things like value yourself, attitude, and choices. Very simple. You know, I used to hate talking about attitude and choices, and I thought that was so immature to talk to young people about, until I realized the impact that when you change your attitude and work on it every day, the impact that when you stop and instead of reacting, but you respond, just the 4 T's, take time to think, I realized how important those 2 attributes are to one's life.
Wow.
On behalf of District 300, I'd like to thank Jeff Yalden for speaking to our students and our community about such an important topic.
Also, following up on that, there are other YouTube videos with some of his talks, which are really very interesting. I've watched a couple. Last night, D300 Parent University hosted Worries of the World Wide Web at Westfield Community School. Kane County Judges Clint Hull and Susan Clancy Bowles spoke to the attendees about the unseemly aspects of social media, including cyberbullying, posting inappropriate content, sexting, and harassment. The presentation acknowledged that the technology creates convenience in our lives, but danger can lurk in the computer and in cell phone files. What children may view as innocent photo can morph into a life-altering evidence. As judges in the criminal courts, Judge Hall and Judge Bowles see it as their responsibility to educate the public on keeping kids safe in a digital world, specifically how to keep kids connected and safe at the same time. Their fast-moving presentation included lighthearted moments while serving as a serious reminder of outcomes directly attributable to social media. On behalf of District 300, I'd like to thank Judge Hall, Judge Bowles, and the D300 Parent University for organizing this event.
Westfield Community School recently hosted Volley for a Cure, a fundraiser committed to the fight against breast cancer. Nearly 350 attendees, almost all wearing pink, packed the Westfield gym to watch the 8th grade girls volleyball team challenge the 8th grade boys Beta Club members. The event raised $1,800 that will be donated to the American Cancer Research Foundation. Volley for a Cure was organized by Westfield teachers Jerry Rids and Sue Woods, with assistance from the 7th and 8th grade Beta Club members. When asked about the importance of Volley for a Cure, Coach Rids responded, "Sue Woods and I continuously ask for our Beta Club's help in raising money to support the research efforts being made by the American Cancer Research Foundation, because cancer has affected so many people in our community and at our school. 5 years ago, this past August, we lost a young 7th grade teacher to this horrible disease. Since then, other teachers at Westfield Community School and throughout our district have struggled with the disease. I personally lost my own mother to breast cancer when I was 16. She passed away while I was downstate playing in the IHSA state championship volleyball game. That being said, volleyball has always been a very important part of my life, and I'm thrilled to be able to use it as a tool to raise money to help find a cure for breast cancer. On behalf of District 300, I'd like to thank Ms. Rids, Sue Woods, and the Westfield Beta Club for all their hard work in organizing this tremendous event.
On November 10th, District 300 schools recognized Veterans Day by honoring veterans and their families. Each District 300 school hosted a series of unique events and activities to honor veterans. Algonquin Middle School hosted a breakfast for veterans, followed by an all-school assembly. Veterans visited classrooms throughout the day and spoke with students. Jacobs High School hosted a panel of veterans in their auditorium and organized a letter-writing campaign for Honor Flight Chicago, an organization that provides America's senior military veterans with an all-expense-paid, one-of-a-kind journey to Washington, D.C. for a day of honor, thanks, and inspiration. Sleepy Hollow Elementary hosted a third-grade musical with theme songs from military branches and invited veterans who are related to students. In addition to school-based recognition, District 300 commemorated Veterans Day by partnering with Pillars of Freedom to create a Field of Honor display commemorating our veterans. Based out of East Dundee, Pillars of Freedom is an organization that supports the U.S. military and the nation's first responding firefighters and police officers. Pillars of Freedom volunteers placed dozens of flags on the lawn located outside the central office in recognition of our veterans. District 300 proudly supports all of our veterans, and we thank you for your sacrifice and your service to our country. At this time, I invite the community to watch a brief clip of a veterans parade at Hampshire Elementary, where veterans walked down student-lined hallways on their way to the gym where they were honored during an all-school assembly.
All right. Moving along, superintendent's report. We're going to talk about technology plan, and I would encourage you all to pay real good attention because there's some great stuff in here.
So at the time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jason Emrickson and bring him to the podium. He'll be doing this evening's presentation along with Jace Bullhouse. Prior to that, though, as they get ready to transition, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank their board for their continued service to our students and staff and community. Tomorrow is our board recognition day across the state. If it weren't for you acting in your service to our community as good stewards, a lot of what we've accomplished over the last 3 years would not have been done. So I again want to sincerely thank you from my staff to you and from our community to you for your volunteerism and your commitment to excellence, and more importantly, your commitment to service for children. So thank you very much for all your years.
Thank you.
Mr. Emerson.
Good evening, Superintendent Hyde, Board of Education. It is Mr. Bullhouse's and my pleasure to come before you this evening to provide an update on the technology plan. I started in this district about 4 years ago associated with this. One of my first tasks was to come up with a district technology plan. When I first put the plan together back in 2014, it was a 3-year plan associated what direction was the district technology department going to go, and follow that plan through that with the support of the curriculum team associated with getting everything that the curriculum team needs for them to teach. So as I stated, this is the new plan from 2017 to 2020. As far as the roadmap it's going to provide us, the direction from the technology department, the initiatives that we're going to move forward with and look forward to, and it's an ever-changing thing. So next year I'm going to come with some new ideas that's coming up with the curriculum, and technology changes day by day. But this is a best guess of where we're going to be moving. There was communications as this plan was developed. It was developed in conjunction with the CAO team, getting feedback where they see the district moving in 3 years and what we're going to be doing. So also going to give you a little where we were back in 2014, as Mr. Stevens mentioned. So there's 5 different areas we're going to talk about tonight. I'll be covering 2 to 3 of them, and Mr. Bullhouse will be covering 3 of them. It will be computing devices, servers and storage, telecommunications, network and internet, business applications, and digital curriculum applications. Computing devices. So computing devices in this term is desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, iPads associated with it. One of the biggest things that we came into this, I want to point out, is when I started back in 2014, 22% only 22% of district funds were used to buy technology equipment in regards to devices, computers, laptops associated with that. Most of the other funds were either from grants, PTOs, referendums, so we didn't have the pot of money to purchase our technology. We've since moved that. It's 100% being funded now by the district finances associated with that. So we're not using any outside funds to purchase our equipment. Back then, we were 4-to-1 devices. As you guys have approved and went forward, we were 1-to-1 grades 1st through 12th grade. We had no Chromebooks back then. We're up to just under 20,000, so 19,890 Chromebooks distributed out throughout the district. With that, we have reduced the number of laptops from about 8,500 to 3,700 laptops. We reduced the number of iPads, which are primarily in pre-K and kindergarten, to 452. We are completing our first 5-year cycle of replacing technology equipment into this next year. We're looking forward to replacing teachers' computers and associated with that, and we have a Chromebook replacement cycle associated with. So these are a lot of great things that we've been able to put in place associated that with not having a plan 4 years ago. So we're seeing a lot of that hard work and fruition from your guys' support come throughout the district, and we really appreciate that. I'm not going to turn it over. Oh, I'm sorry. So things that we have been working on. So we have some yearly action items we do every year. We investigate our staffing needs to ensure that we're meeting the support that's needed for the teachers and students. And we also investigate the classroom needs associated with what is in the classroom, what needs to be in the classroom. This past year, based on that, we rolled out document cameras to all elementary school buildings associated with that. So we're always re-looking at it, trying to improve what's going on in the education and curriculum associated with that. So it is a 3-year plan, and I did originally put this slide together, had a bunch of items here. So I just whittled it down to what are we looking to accomplish this next school year. Really looking to accomplish a support matrix for various system software processes that we don't already have in place. Develop a replacement plan for the iPads in kindergarten, pre-K and kindergarten iPads. Look at the computer and Chromebook replacement cycle, making sure that's meeting our needs. As technology changes on a very rapid pace, we need to make sure that we're ensuring that the devices keep up and we keep constantly being up to date associated with that. This next year, we're going to finish out start a Windows 7 to Windows 10, so that's going to be a big change for our district as we look to move to the future and look to support that as Windows 7 is becoming end of life associated with that. So I'm going to turn the next one over to Mr. Bullhouse.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Hyde. The first item I'm going to be discussing with you tonight is our server and storage environment. Back in 2014, when Jason and I came into the district, we had a mixed environment of physical and virtual servers within our school buildings. Almost every school building had a physical server associated with it, and our virtual servers within the district were scattered and on mismatching equipment throughout the district. We also had environmental system concerns at our Dundee Crown and Hampshire High data centers. We had a legacy battery backup system at our Dundee Crown data center. It was really designed more for an industrial application rather than a data center application. And actually on Superintendent's Hyde first week in the district, it failed. So that was an exciting time. It was in the summer, so we'll put that one in there. And also, we had inadequate cooling at both of those locations. Often we'd have failures with our cooling systems that would lead to district outages. Now in 2017, we've virtualized and consolidated all of those individual building servers into 3 primary data centers for the district. We serve those data centers out of our 3 high schools, and we've worked to standardize the equipment in those data centers. So when there's time for a hardware upgrade or a refresh, those are more easily performed. We've replaced that battery backup at the Dundee Crown Data Center with one more suitable to the application, and the cooling systems at both Dundee Crown and the Hampshire High Data Centers have been replaced to meet the needs of the equipment in the district today. Today we're using approximately 69% of our available storage amongst those 3 data centers. This upcoming year, we're looking to continue to consolidate similar services that we offer into single servers to hopefully reduce our server footprint as time goes on. We're replacing the Hampshire High Data Center with reclaimed equipment from the previous installation of the Dundee Crown Data Center to serve as a disaster recovery site for our district. We're finishing up the backup replacement of our servers, and this backup system allows us to keep a replicated copy of our backup data in the cloud in case of a disaster striking the district. And we're looking at developing plans to transition user data and email systems to the cloud in the future. Moving on, my next item is telecommunications. So back in 2014, our voicemail system was kind of a mess. Users would either access a physical server to get their voicemail services, a virtual server, but the majority of them had to access their embedded voicemail system in their building. We had analog fax lines at every building, and buildings like Dundee Crown, Hampshire High, Jacobs High had multiple fax lines for their various departments. Total, district-wide, we had 118 analog plain old telephone and Centrex lines. Today, we've standardized our voicemail platform into a single virtual environment. All of those fax lines have been converted into digital fax lines that are now processed by our WriteFax server. Our analog lines have reduced to 87, and we've disconnected all of our legacy Centrex lines. Those 87 analog lines are primarily used for elevator phones, alarm systems, and the emergency calling phone at every building. We completed a telecommunications audit in January that reviewed our contracts, bills, and usage for all of our primary rate interface circuits, our analog telephones, our data circuits, our cellular plan, and through that we found recommendations to help reduce our costs in all of those areas and have implemented those. We're working to implement a failover design for inbound and outbound calling on our PRI circuits, and that's one of the action items for 17-18. And what this is going to do for us is essentially if there's an outage with one of our telecommunications vendors, say a PRI circuit goes down, we'll have the ability to automatically fail over those incoming and outgoing calls over to another active working circuit within the district, ensuring users don't lose access to that piece of communication. We're investigating a call recording process to implement district-wide, and we're evaluating the life cycle and expected depreciation of our voice system equipment to determine if a replacement cycle is necessary at this time or if we should be looking to virtualize that equipment. The final piece I have before I turn it back over to Mr. Emrickson is our networking and internet infrastructure, my favorite spot to be. Back in 2014, we had a mixed switching environment of HP and Cisco switching. This also led to us having a mixed routing protocol environment, which added some complexity to the network at the time. At the time, we also had a coverage-based wireless design, meaning that every building had wireless corner to corner, but it couldn't handle this kind of clients that we'd expect today. Total district-wide, we had 2.4 gigabits per second of bandwidth, of which approximately 14% was used by our users during the day. And our building-to-building WAN design had multiple vendors involved with that process, which added additional complexity and reliability issues into our network. Today, we've consolidated to a single switching vendor environment and a single routing protocol to help simplify the network design. We deployed a high-density wireless network into all of our school buildings, totals 1,681 access points, and every day we see around 26,000 unique wireless clients. Our bandwidth's increased to 4.1 gigabits per second. Of that, we see approximately 28% used on a daily average. And we've standardized that building-to-building WAN connection on a single vendor, which has allowed us to implement some additional failover designs into our network design. This upcoming year, we're looking to expand some of our disaster recovery beyond the failover designs we've implemented into the network today. Some designs around what if a building loses access to a WAN connection entirely, how do we bring them up? And then we're looking to develop a long-term bandwidth needs plan for our users within our district as technology becomes more and more involved in the classroom every single day. That 28% utilization is not going to stick around. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jason Emmerson here for our application section.
So one thing I want to mention in regards to when I was working with the CAO team, that was the biggest request that they had associated with the future of technology was bandwidth, because they envision a lot more bandwidth, personalized bandwidth, either searching YouTube videos or whatever they're doing. As we move more and more to digital curriculum, that bandwidth is just going to get used up. So that's one of the biggest requests that they had associated with that. This topic is the business and digital curriculum applications. I just want to give you an overview of what we do, what we service as a team associated within the technology department. We have our business applications there on the left side: Infinite Campus, Lawson, Pushcoin, Horizon, OneSource, Kronos, MHC Document Express, SmartFind, Tableau, Plasco. On the right-hand side is the digital support applications throughout all the digital support and curriculum that we do throughout a lot of things on the right-hand side. I'm not going to read through them all, but they weren't here in 2014. If they were, it's very sparse. So just look at the growth of that associated with that is a great testimony to us moving to the digital curriculum associated with the Chromebooks as we move forward associated with that. So a lot of different things. The ones in red are the ones coming up, towards the end of this year, potentially being presented to you guys into next year. So it's an ever-growing list, and when I come back, next year when I'm presenting, you're probably going to see more potentially up there. But it's a great thing to see as we're moving more and more to the digital age. So.
When you're done, I have a comment.
Okay. So then we're talking about the yearly items. We're going to always develop an annual plan to evaluate to make sure these products are meeting our needs from the business operations side and from the curriculum side. Develop an upgrade plan to each, because every year, just like your cell phones, everything needs to get upgraded with the new operating system, make changes associated with that. So making sure we're doing that in a timely manner to not impact education, and investigating streamlining options for students and staff coming on to applications, because every time we get a new application, it's a new upload of students and staff associated with that, so we're not impacting that. Currently, action items for 17-18, we're currently in the mix of doing an initial cyber risk assessment audit. We've done the initial audit, and we're working through that process to help secure that. And as a growing industry, as far as everybody being attacked with cyber risk and being cognizant of what's going on with data. Evaluate the current student information system to make sure it's meeting our needs. Migrate applications to the One Roster interface. That is to help us streamline the students' upload into the applications. Develop an onboarding process for digital curriculum applications that goes right in line with the One Roster, but really vetting them to make sure that technology is not going to impact or impede anything that's going on in digital curriculum. And develop an application development process for Chromebook applications and extensions. We're seeing a big, with all us having Chromebooks, how we put those extensions on or applications associated with this Chromebook, make sure we have a secure process for that. Last item I want to talk about is staffing. Back in 2004, we had 35 staff, technology staff, and they were spread out amongst the district. We just entered in our second year of the zone support structure, and we only had one person covering help desk from 6:30 to 3:30. Since then, as you can see on the right-hand side, we actually reduced staff by 3 members. We actually transitioned those staff over to the instructional technology side. But we are still in the zone structure, still in the zone support as we move forward, but we've expanded the zones because we created Chrome Depot. So what Chrome Depot is here is that's basically the area that services all our Chromebooks associated with that. We actually have some members here at the Chrome Depot, Mike Reed and Danny's over here. They're 2 members that work in the Chrome Depot, especially associated fixing all the Chromebooks and doing a wonderful job associated with that. And you know, we've also extended our help desk hours from 6:30 to 4:30, and we've reallocated some positions to look at support. As you can see, all those digital applications that grew on the right side, we actually have a new position in there for digital technology support position. That's actually Mr. Finger back there in the back. And I'd be remiss not to mention all the other technology. We have Paul Weldon, Gary Krause, and an ICT member of Marty Whitehouse. I think did I catch everybody? But I just want to thank them. Huh? Oh, Mike Bourbon behind the door doing your video. He's the one, he's behind the door right there doing the video associated with that. But
It's the great wizard behind the curtain.
yes. Yeah, so, but we wouldn't have been able to do all this it's just not me and Mr. Bullhouse's work. This is everybody that I mentioned, and plus, you know, a ton more back behind the scenes to make this happen. And of course, with your guys' support through the finances as we did. We've accomplished a lot in the last 3 years, and we're going to accomplish even more as we move, you know, to 2020 as we look forward to this. But I appreciate all that you guys do for that, and really want to thank my team and my staff who do a wonderful job in supporting the teachers with that. So.
Ms. Garcia?
I just want to say, and I'm doing this more for the people who are going to listen to this afterwards, because I think most people that are in the room right now understand the complexity of what you do, or at least understand the scope of what you do. It is mind-boggling to me, and I get to see all the reports and I get to read about it, how much your department is not only responsible for, but how much you're handling on a daily basis. Outages, although rare, are handled so efficiently and so quickly. I open an email that says something's down, and then it's almost at the same time there's well, it's back, you know, and I think it's very important for all of the shareholders, all the students, staff, parents to realize the amount of stuff, because I'm super technical, stuff that you guys are responsible for and take care of and handle so efficiently for our district. 21,000 students, faculty, staff, all of our buildings, support. It's we take it for granted, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you, because we shouldn't, and it's bigger than we make it, and we really do take all of this just like, well, of course it's going to work, because we know that we have you in the background. So thank you very much for all of your work.
I also would comment that I'm sure that Dr. Scarpino and Mrs. Kopaz can relate to this because we've been around a little bit longer. When Mr. Willard was here and gave a presentation of what the future was going to look like in technology, all I can say is it didn't look like this. And to reiterate what Ms. Garcia said, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Can I say something, Joe? Go ahead, Susie. You go first.
Yeah, I remember that presentation. They had to teach us what a cloud was.
Yeah.
You know, so we've come a long way. All right, so education field is full of acronyms. What's a CAO team?
Curriculum, Chief Academic Officer.
Thank you.
That's Carl's team.
Carl, okay. You have a team? Okay. You talked about the failover design for PRI?
Yeah, PRI. Sorry, a PRI is a primary rate interface, and essentially is.
I don't think that helped.
I'll get to right
for any of us in the room, quite honestly.
It's a circuit that we
Jason
carry
over
voice over. So a single circuit for a PRI can carry 23 channels or 23 independent phone calls at
And
the
what's
same
a
time.
PRI again?
A primary rate interface.
Rate. So you're not talking rate like a cost. It's the rate of speed
It's the rate of the channels. So there's 23 independent channels in there.
in where?
in the PRI. So it's two wires of copper.
Okay.
And over those 2 wires of copper, we can have 23 simultaneous phone calls.
Awesome. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Again, to the scope
All
Oh, no
of work
problem.
that these
I got
people
no-
are
I-
doing.
I'm here anytime.
I have other questions. I thought it interesting that you were creating a disaster recovery center at HSS, so I'm assuming that if everything went down, that would be the go-to.
Yeah, today our primary data center where the majority of our services are hosted is Dundee Crown. So within our district, the ideal secondary place would be Hampshire High. With
You'll
that,
have two eventually.
we will have the primary and then the secondary DR site. Today, we serve out of 3 locations. Eventually, we are looking to abandon the Jacobs Data Center.
Okay, so, and it said you're making the HHS Disaster Recovery Center out of reclaimed equipment from Dundee Crown?
Yes, I believe it was it 2015 or 2016 that we purchased the Nutanix Data Center? 2016, It was in 2016. The board approved the purchase of a forklift upgrade for the Dundee Crown Data Center. So after implementing that, we have our spare equipment that was the Dundee Crown Data Center. A lot of capacity, but not the fastest speeds. So from that, we can take that equipment and repurpose it for our secondary purposes.
Even though it's not fast?
In a pinch, it'll work. We're not looking to fail over every single service to that situation, but our primary services like Lawson, if we need to spin up a second instance of Infinite Campus, things like that to make sure business operations continue to move forward.
So once that gets done, you'll have 2 disaster recovery centers, one at Dundee Crown and one at Hampshire High School.
No, we'll have a primary data center at Dundee Crown.
Okay.
And we'll have a secondary disaster recovery site at Hampshire High. With this, in addition, our backup system is now offloading our backups into the cloud, which is...
I know what the cloud
Okay.
is.
For those who don't, it's essentially offloading it to somebody else's server hardware in association for a cost. And that way we can have that replicated copy out there in the world far away from us in case we ever need to claim it back down.
And do you purchase services for like antivirus and theft and all of that, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we do.
For every single computer and that's online in our district?
Every district computer, yes.
Because that's the next terror. I'm just throwing it out there.
So we have redundancy times 2?
In what aspect?
The whole system?
Not in the whole system. So if we take apart every unique piece of network equipment or every unique server, no. But our primary goal is to make those high-end applications like Lawson available in a secondary site, as well as having an offline backup far away from us available. If we
So
ever need to
critical
pull it.
data would be redundancy
Yes.
times 2? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Dr. Scarpino?
In 2014, I was an employee here, and seeing the jump that you guys have done is just phenomenal. My question is, going back to servers and storage.
Yes.
In 14, it was 32% storage capacity, and now it's 69%. What happens when you get to 100%?
Right, when we get to 100%, we're full, right?
Exactly.
So one of the items I mentioned was the replacement of the Hampshire Data Center as a secondary site. That's going to add in a large amount of capacity for us to have access to, so that's going to help with that 69% number.
Great. You guys are doing a great job. You truly are. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, we have no public participation. Do we have a legislative update?
We do not. Unless Fred has one, I do not.
Not at this time.
Mr. Hyde, excuse me.
Item number 11, could I have a motion, please, to approve the consent items under 25,000?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fiorentino?
Garcia,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. McNicholas,
Aye.
Scarpino,
Aye.
and Stevens.
Aye.
6-0.
And just, I know this doesn't need to be said, but please know that all of these items have been discussed in committees in great detail, so it's not like we're just voting on something because it's on the paper. Item 12.1, could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the employee benefits contract?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrantino?
Scarpino?
Aye.
Garcia?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
McNicholas? Lopez?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye, 6-0.
Item 12.2, could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the fleet management services contract?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrantino?
And that would be Lopez?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. Garcia?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
6-0.
And I apologize, I'm supposed to be asking if there's any discussion. I have not been doing that, but I assume somebody will jump in should you want to discuss it. Item 12.3, could I have approval, please, for the summer project professional services contract?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Ferrantino?
Garcia?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. Lopez?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
6-0.
12.4, could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the custodial supplies bid?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Ferrantino?
Fiorentino, aye. Garcia?
Aye.
Lopez?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
6-0.
12.5, could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the weight room equipment bid?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrantino? Any discussion? Mr. Ferrantino?
Garcia?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Lopez?
Aye.
And Fiorentino, aye. 6-0.
Item 12.6, could I have a motion, please, for the approval of the computer laptop request for proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Ferrantino?
Lopez?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
Stevens?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Garcia?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. 6-0.
All right, I ask you to bear with me. I have to read some things for these next items. Item 14.1, student discipline case number 3. Could I have a motion, please? Well, wait till I I'll read it first, correct? All right. I would like to have a motion to expel student number 3 for the remainder of the 2017-18 school year and the summer of 2018 for violation of board policy 7.190, specifically using any form or type of aggressive behavior that causes or is likely to cause physical or psychological harm to a student and create a harmful disruption of the educational environment. Possessing a look-alike weapon on school property with the intent to intimidate or threaten a peer, violation of an existing student discipline warning, and violation of an existing safe school plan. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrantino?
It's Garcia, second. Scarpino?
Aye.
Garcia?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. Lopez?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
And Stevens. Passes 6-0.
Item 14.2, whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Tony Gennardo, a DESPA employee, previously discussed in closed session, and whereas this Board of Education herewith finds and determines that evidence shows that Mr. Gennardo failed to obtain permission prior to accessing the building and working hours outside of an assigned shift, failed to clock in prior to performing job duties, and violated the workspace of an administrator, whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Ms. Gennardo is in the best interest of the district, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education Unit School District 300 that Mrs. Gennardo is hereby suspended without pay for 1 day to take place on November 15th, 2017. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ferrantino?
Garcia?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. Lopez?
Aye.
McNicholas?
Aye.
Scarpino?
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Item 14.4, resolution of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 authorizing suspension. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Sarah Emerson, a DESA employee, previously discussed in closed session. And whereas the Board of Education herewith finds and determines that evidence shows that Ms. Emerson failed to perform her job duties as delineated in her job description and did not follow expectations addressed in previous written disciplinary warnings. Whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Mrs. Emerson is in the best interest of the district, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 that Ms. Emerson is hereby suspended without pay for 1 day to take place on November 15th, 2017. Mr. Fiorentino?
So moved.
Motion, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Fiorentino?
Garcia.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye. Lopez. McNicholas. And Scarpino.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Resolution of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 authorizing suspension. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Leonard Jacoby, a DESPA employee previously discussed in closed session, and whereas this Board of Education herewith finds and determines that the evidence shows that Mr. Jacoby failed to perform his job duties as delineated in his job description and did not follow the expectations addressed in previous written disciplinary warnings. Whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Mr. Jacoby is in the best interest of the district, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 that Mr. Jacoby is hereby suspended without pay for 1 day to take place on November 14th, 2017. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fiorentino?
Garcia.
Aye.
Scarpino.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
And Fiorentino, aye. 6-0.
Item 14.6, resolution of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 authorizing suspension. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 300 has received a recommendation from the administration regarding the performance and conduct of Robert Rivera, a DESPA employee previously discussed in closed session. And whereas the Board of Education herewith finds and determines that evidence shows that Mr. Rivera failed to perform assigned job duties, was dishonest and improper in the use of work time, and did not follow the expectations addressed in previous written disciplinary warnings. Whereas the Board of Education finds that the suspension of Mr. Rivera is in the best interest of the district. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education Unit School District 300, Mr. Rivera is hereby suspended without pay for 5 days to take place November 15th, 2017 through November 21st, 2017. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fiorentino?
Scarpino.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Fiorentino, no. Lopez.
Aye.
McNicholas.
Aye.
And Stevens.
Aye.
5-1 passes.
We're on to board discussion, and I would like to start it off by saying that a week ago, Mr. Hyde, Mrs. Kopes, and I had the opportunity to attend a STEAM conference, which is a STEM conference with art added. I had to ask that question, what is a STEAM conference? We went to a company called the Print Corporation in Janesville, Wisconsin. They are a thermal packaging company, basically, that packages medical equipment in molded plastic that they make on site. We got to tour the plant and found the process is extremely interesting. Also, all of us noticed that a good deal of the people that were working there were gray-haired, and we wondered where's the follow-up workers going to come from. In the conference itself, which was sponsored by Discovery Education, I have to say that some of the takeaways that I got, and I'll let Mrs. Kopaz speak. First of all, our society does some strange things, and one of the things that it does is it discourages females from going into these fields. And as it turns out, females who are tested in these fields often excel, sometimes better than the males in the fields. In fact, oftentimes better than the males. So one of the takeaways is that we need to find ways to encourage females to enter into STEM programs. We also we're convinced that our world is not such bad shape, that instead of asking the questions what, we need to ask the questions why, and we need not to necessarily give our students quite so much support, but say to them, here's the problem, how are you going to fix it? And by golly, they will. They'll come up with their own methods and ways to fix it. And all we have to do is be standing by to support and answer questions, but let them do it, let them be creative, and they are. We had the opportunity to see, I think it was about a half a dozen senior high school students from the Janesville district that were talking about STEM education and also about their robotics training and how that impacted them, which was really very impressive. Another question that I had for Mr. Hyde on the way home is how are we going to help our instructional staff convert to being more in line with what we're trying to accomplish with STEM education. And he got this big grin on his face, and he said he's meeting with the people from Discovery Education in 2 weeks. So I'm anxious to hear how that's going to go. And I said, well, you've kind of unleashed a couple of monsters now, and Mrs. Kopaz and I, because now we're going to be, now that we're all turned on, we're going to kind of be pushing the idea. But I will leave other comments for Mrs. Kopaz and Mr. Hyde.
It was a fascinating day for all the reasons that Mr. Stevens just said. But just walking around that factory, I don't know if I'd even call it a factory, was fascinating. There's not that many employees, but everybody that was there loved their job. So it really spoke well to the owner of the business. It's a privately held business. So next time you go to the doctor and you see them, pull apart the plastic and take out the tool that they're going to use, even the dentist office, and it's absolutely clean, that's the company that makes that. And so it was just fascinating to see how they made things out of plastic. So we got to see the tour first, and then we came back and we talked about educating kids so they can go into that field. It was fascinating to hear the students. They were so energetic and so excited about what they were doing. Mr. Stevens and I, they divided everybody up, like all the principals and superintendents sit here and all the teachers sit here, and we were the lone community members. So we had the opportunity to sit with the gentleman that was there from Discovery Education. I will say, Kristen, they did talk about how much they work with our district, and they love District 300 for Discovery Education. But being an ex-teacher, I was fascinated by it and totally am on board with that. You don't push out education to students anymore. You teach them how to learn, how to discover for themselves. They said everything that we are teaching in high school now in 5 years will be obsolete. So no longer do we need to teach students, push out, learn this, memorize it, learn this, memorize it. How do you solve a problem? What can you discover? What can you research? And so it's teaching kids how to be, as we all know in District 300, lifelong learners. So it was fascinating. It was inspiring. It was motivating. It was challenging. We have a huge district, but I'm so proud of our leadership, and I'm proud of our staff and how much you are on board with helping our students be the best lifelong learners they can be. So thank you for inviting me. It was great. I do want to recommend that if you do get a chance to go on YouTube, I don't know if you guys saw the YouTube video, You Will Perform Better. And I'll have to try to Google and find it, but I had seen it before where a gentleman was at a conference and he was asking a gentleman, what do you do for a living? And he said, I'm a high school music teacher. And he said, okay, sing Amazing Grace for me. Did you see that one? Staff saw it. Isn't that a great video? it just gave you chills, because when you know your why, when you know and you have a reason, and that's what we want to instill in our students, that there's a why. Why do you want to discover something? Why do you want to come up with a solution? And kudos to District 300. You're on the right track, and we're going to make the best students out there. I'm proud of all of you.
And before I turn it over to Mr. Hyde, the one other thing that I just remembered is I have a granddaughter in another school district, and she's a freshman in high school, and wasn't too long ago that she came home and dissolved into tears because she got a bad grade on a math test. And the gentleman who was, what was the doctor's name? Do you remember, Mr. Hyde?
I do not.
The person who, it was a PhD putting on the program, who was really excellent, and he talked about his daughter who came home from a calculus class and got 77% and was devastated. And he said, hey, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, because what you're learning in calculus is not necessarily the formula, but you're learning how, as Mrs. Kopes says, how to solve problems. And it's a proven fact. There is medical science that backs this up, that you go through experiences like this, you actually change the function of the brain and the synapses, and you are better prepared for the future and to problem solve. So I just thought that was very impressive. Mr. Hyde, would you like to add anything, or did we take it all?
I don't know that there's much to add. I did share the video with staff today. It is a powerful video because it speaks to our D300 Drive initiative this year, which is focusing on rigor and relevance, and our other instructional focus areas, such as explicit vocabulary instruction and whatnot. But the point behind that is it's easy to tell students what a standard is and what they're required to learn. It's another to make that connection so that they understand their why. What's the passion they bring to the topic? What's the passion they bring, or the creativity that they're afforded to be able to demonstrate that competency? And I think, the strides that we're making, Mr. Emerson today with Jace and his entire team here, thank you to all of you for setting the stage for the future of our district, not because instruction takes the place of our educators, but it is a very useful tool, and it will afford our students with some unique opportunities for real-time, on-time learning, is typically the phrase that we use. Kudos to Ann Pasco and to the rest of her DLCs, because they're creating that pathway as well. And it's a delicate one as we make this transition, but we do have to look to the future. And I think competency-based learning is a topic we're going to talk about over the next year or so as we start to reshape our perception of learning and the timeline in which it occurs, and allow students to develop. And when we talk about differentiation, and we have been talking about differentiation at the individual student level for probably 15 to 20 years, we're finally at a place now where we can actually make that happen for students. And it's an exciting time. It's a scary time simultaneously. My takeaway from that as well is the need for us to continue to reach out to our local businesses, emerging industries, to make those internship and externship connections for our students so that they have the opportunity to go out and experience those potential skills and continue to grow and develop. But they're absolutely right. When we looked at the staff there, primarily males, probably 60 years old, or in many cases, especially with the machinists, and you look at those tasks and you realize that it's that and several other industries are aging out, and we need to it's not about pushing kids into jobs or a career pathway that they're not interested in. Those are the new emerging industries, the ability for machinists to create new items. Think about 3D printing. Think about how far that's come. And there are a lot of other great YouTube videos out there, TED videos, that talk about, how many times have we seen recently in the media students who are creating artificial limbs now using 3D printers. They're learning the engineering of it. They're learning the problem-solving aspect. We're learning the mechanisms and the planning of that. And that absolutely ties into science and mathematics and literacy skills. So giving kids an effective foundation in literacy and numeracy is our primary mission, and then giving those students the ability and the skill set and the encouragement to go above and beyond. I think one of the strongest takeaways that I continue to have as I attend those types of sessions is that we've got to get kids accustomed to failing from time to time. Not failing in life, but it's okay to approach a problem, not get it absolutely correct, and then revisit it from a different lens. And that each time we fail and we learn a different way, we make better connections. And so it's really a skill set And we look at our students today and the feedback that we receive about their mental health and their stress that they feel and the anxiety that they feel. Part of that is we don't always nurture that opportunity for them to fail and pick themselves up and demonstrate success. So we need to create that system and continue to discuss what that might look like moving forward. But thank you for sharing that. It was a great trip, and there will be subsequent ones, as you know. So,
The other thing that I would add is that if you look at our pathway program and incubator program, it kind of fits in with that there are some really good things happening in this district that if you don't know much about it, it would behoove you to get into it. And the other thing that was stressed was the value of our junior colleges and how important they are and how we need to take advantage of them, not only for cost, but for what they can provide. And not everybody has to go to college to be very successful and get a six-figure salary. There are a lot of opportunities out there. And just in a personal note, I'd like to say that I've known Mrs. Kopacz for quite a while, but I got a chance to really see her in action. And the questions that she asked and the responses that she was giving at our little private table there with the people from Discovery was most impressive, and it was very clear to me that her heart as an educator is still very much alive and beating. With that, I will...
Wait, I got one more thing to say. Not about that day, but if anybody watches Shark Tank on Sunday night,
yes.
If you happen to see the lady that invented little like Barbie dolls on Segways, wasn't that great? Yeah. And the girls could learn to code when they were 3rd and 4th grade. Rock on.
I thought that was fantastic.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day when that's not a surprise. That doesn't shock us.
What was sad is that nobody wanted to back her business. She only had one person that wanted to back her business. Oh, well. It's a TV show.
Shark Tank is great. A lot of innovation goes on there.
And I knew the 2 guys that did the fish dip. Just want to throw that out there.
On the board committee reports, there is really nothing to report on finance. We've already covered it with the motions that we've passed. Mr. Fiorentino, is there anything you'd like to say about construction?
A couple things. We met last week, had a robust meeting, and we voted on many of the things, items that we covered in your packet tonight. 2 things I would like to point out. One, I just want to say well done to Dan Opels and team for just tremendous creativity. We voted on the fleet management services contract, and I know the board got the packet, but just to point out to the community that the representative for Enterprise Fleet Management presented to us, and the expectation or the anticipation will be about just short of $400,000 savings to the district by going to this model at year 10. So just thinking out of the box, and great job, Dan and Susan and team. Well done. And then one other thing I just wanted to point out, board, if you would make sure that you take a look at the change order administration procedure. Thank you to Mr. Stevens, who attended the past 2 meetings, and this is something that he's asked for. Mrs. Harkin took a look at this and made some, I think, very good changes to that. And then lastly, the master facility plan. The master facility plan is a huge undertaking. It will be it was in draft format at the last meeting, and we will see it at the CFOC at the first meeting in January, which I believe is now January 6th or 7th. We're going to move it back by 1 week. So our next meeting is December 4th, and actually that'll be the last meeting of the year. Thank you.
Are there any other items that any board member would like to bring up to discuss? If not, I'd be glad to accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fiorentino?
Okay, and that would be Kopacz. Fiorentino. Aye. Garcia.
Aye.
McNicholas. Scarpino.
Aye.
And Stevens. Passes 6-0.